Yeah. So first of all, today's session, mainly we are trying to focus on your internships and the placement preparations. Since anyway, I see a less number of people from the final years. So let's keep the session more on the internships part. So first of all, let's say, I mean, in any internship, I think which will be like your crucial part of your further placement process, because that gives you like the first step approach on how the industry is and what they are expecting, and it gives you the first hand experience on how the corporate world outside is, right? So yeah, so let's go through like a few major steps that you guys have to concentrate irrespective of whether it is for the internships or for the placements. What would be like some of the major areas that you guys have to focus? So, nevertheless, always the first thing, whenever you go ahead with any of your process, it should be your skill set that is like important. That would be the key to cracking any interview or any placement. So I'll just highlight the basic steps first, and then we'll go in detail on each and everything and how do you have to some of the tips and strategies that we usually use in each of the steps. I hope my screen is visible. I don't see anyone speaking or anything. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so after developing your skill set, the next important thing is how you present yourself to a company. So it's just like all you have with you guys when you start with the process will be your document, which is basically your resume that you're going to submit, by which you yourself is going to present to your company that what you bring to the table. So that should be like one of the crucial thing that you guys have to focus before any internship. After your skill development, it's how you present yourself. That's the most important thing. And once you do that, you guys, the next important thing is, this is where you start your actual process of applications, right? So before that, you guys have to try to get as many connections as possible, even if it is through your I'm just keeping this session generic, not focusing more on the placement cell as such, because it's not always guaranteed that you have to rely on the placement cell for your internships or placements in your career. And this is something which would be with you guys only for another 1 or 2 years, depending on which year you are. But after that, it's you guys who have to take the initiative and start applying for companies. So I would say LinkedIn especially helps, I mean, especially for the engineering students who are targeting like the engineering related jobs. Otherwise, there are a few other sectoral jobs which might not heavily depend on LinkedIn. But I would say for the tech jobs, at least, the LinkedIn is like the best place where you can actually meet people and get referrals. Or there is a lot of stuff that you can actually do, which will go through in the subsequent steps. After this will be your job application. Once you guys are confident enough with your first three steps, I would say this step would be the most easiest thing. Yeah. Once your application is done, the next step would be your actual process of your application, right? So let's go through each of the steps, so how it goes and each of things. So first thing, so coming to the skill development. So let's say anyway, we are restricting it to the tech jobs. I would say the first and the foremost thing that you guys have to develop, I mean, which I feel, missed in a lot of, I'm observing my friends and all. This is some area which we guys usually don't focus when we are in our college days. So that would be your first thing, the core skills. When I say core skills, it's not about different kinds of topics or something. I would say it would be like the fundamentals, irrespective of whatever the concept you guys prepare, be it the coding. Let's say, anyway, since many guys look for this coding and DSA, usually a lot of tech jobs or the applications, you will have this MCQs. Okay. And most of the students actually mess in this MCQs only because of the lack of the fundamentals. It won't be like too difficult once you learn a concept. And most of the students, when you guys prepare this DSA and all, which is again the most important thing I would say in a tech interview, considering your entry level jobs. Once you move to the higher profiles, there are a few other things that you guys have to concentrate. But at least for the internships, the DSA would be your major key that you're going to use from your online assessments as well as in your actual interviews as well. So apart from that, this MCQs thing is like the very basic things. You guys could have learned like functions and all. Let's say I'm just using this as an example. When you learn any programming language, there are like few concepts like the functions and all this stuff. But many students actually suffer, like I'm just using the recursion as an example. They get confused in between when you have a long process. I mean, usually the companies are like they'll ask you the output of the function, and lack of syntax understanding and all, you'll actually keep some answer, but actually they actually try you to get the syntax error, identify those as well. So that's the first important thing that we have to ensure when you learn the skills, which is the fundamentals of the any language, be it be Python, be it be Java or C++, whichever you guys are comfortable in. You have to get the basic programming concepts very strong. And next thing, obviously, the DSA. Many guys of you would have been working on a lot of platforms. Lead Code or GFGs also have a lot of good stuff in terms of DSA. And then along with these two, I would say there are like few companies which expect you a little bit more, which mostly it drives into the object-oriented programming, which would be majority part. And the next important thing would be your DBMS concepts, because there are a few companies, at least for the analyst roles, you can expect a lot in terms of SQL or no SQL, or depending on the language that they expect. And the last two topics, I would say networks and the operating systems, is like very minimal. They won't ask you, at least for the interns, a lot of things they don't focus. Nevertheless, you guys have to, at least for the placements, you have to have a basic idea, because anyway these are like some subjects you will learn as a part of your computer science profiles or whatever the tech roles. These are like some of the important concepts. Okay, moving ahead, there are a few more companies where you can actually expect these in the interviews, not in the online assessments, where you'll have the puzzles. So they you ask you these things to understand the thought process of you guys when you present yourselves in the interview. It's mostly about not getting the answer correct or something, but the main thing they focus is how you're approaching a problem. It's in some sense gives them an understanding on how the guys are going to expect when they see a very new problem. When you work in the industry, it's like you might not see something that you run this sorting algorithm or something like that. It's going to be you have a major problem, and then you guys are going to concentrate on the subtopics. You have to basically design a basic approach how you're going to move forward. So that's where the thinking ability of the developer comes into picture. So that's the main reason we have this aptitude and the puzzle solving in the interview processes. So coming to some of the basic things, I mean, where you can actually practice these things, I would say DSA, you guys can go through the lead code a lot. I mean, you can actually start with medium problems. Most of the companies, you can expect them to aim at least one or two questions. If there is like two questions in your interviews, one question at least would be from medium profile. So you should guys should have a lot of proficiency when you concentrate on them. And when I say proficiency, it's not that you learn the problem, it's about you learn the approach, how and the different kinds of algorithms that they are going to use. So that's going to help you when you see an actual problem in your online assessment. It's not always going to be like you're given an array and then you have to sort it. It's always going to be, let's say I'm just using this. So if you guys are aware, so there is a concept like sliding window. They're never going to ask you like to find the major sum, maximum sum, which is like one of the famous problem, but they're going to tweak it a bit, and then you're going to expect a question. But at the end, the solution that you expect, it's not going to be anything, just that you'll have some maximum that you're going to find using the algorithm that you have learned. and then it would be some just like a maximum of whatever the result that you got and some other standard value which would serve as the base case. So many students get stuck at this point when they see even a minor tweak. So that's where the regular practice of your DSA comes into picture. And the next important thing, I would say, most of the companies, at least now in my after the my career, I have attended a lot of interviews, and I would say the previous experiences that you guys can see will actually help you a lot. There are like couple of interviews where I technically got the same question that they have been asking like in 3 4 profiles. And we also, I think, we had a repository from the alumni team as well on the placement processes. You guys can go through that. That would actually help you on what range of problems a company is expecting when you prepare for any company anyway. If it's a new company, well, you can actually make use of the online platforms, and I would say lead code would be one of the best place. You can just type in the whatever the company name and then go for the lead code experiences. You'll get a lot of similar profiles, so you can expect something similar even in your puzzles. Also, there are like some standard puzzle solving problems, like there are like 50 of them which you can even expect every now and then asking in the interviews. So these also you can actually simply find it in the online, and if you guys need my help, I'll put some links after the session. Yeah. So the next thing, these are like open source contributions also serves as one of the important things in your skills. I mean, this may not be an immediate important at this moment, at least for the internships and placements. When you apply from your college side, it'll be guided through the placement office. So they mostly won't concentrate much on your open source contributions. They'll just primarily focus on how you perform in your online assessment and then moving forward with your interview processes. But nevertheless, the other thing is the interpersonal skills. This is how you present yourself in your interview. That is very, very important on how you're answering, how you're interacting with the interviewer, as well as how you're going to maintain that rapport throughout the 1 hour of interview, whatever 1 or 1.5 hour that's going to happen. Sometimes even if you do a little bit bad in the technical part of your interview, it would be these interpersonal skills that are actually help you drive or have a positive impact on the interviewer. So, yeah, moving forward, the next important thing I would say would be your resume preparation. So, coming to the resume preparation, I would say right now I understand like most of you guys would have been using your college template, whatever is provided in the placement office. But I'm just keeping this suggestions general because I just don't want to focus on using the standard template. Not that not in favor, but when you guys move out of your college or when you start applying for some off-campus jobs, you guys should be ready for what the industry is expecting out. So these are some of the major suggestions that I would say. The first thing, preferably, it's important that you maintain a one-page resume. This I know everyone will be saying this, but it's quite difficult to restrict your entire skill set or whatever you're going to present to your job application into one page. But we can go through what are the sections you could actually include towards the end of the session. But the major another important mistake that I usually notice in the resumes, so during when I was in the college also, I have gone through a few resumes of juniors as well as my friends. The major thing is I see is styling. You can expect that people won't be looking at your resume, but actually when even for me, when I looked at the first glance of the resume, these are some things which actually highlight the most. When you have like different sizes of indentations and spacings and the font sizes, and also sometimes people use a different styling. They follow the first section in one style, and then when you move towards the end of your resume, it's in a different style. Those things are like very clearly visible in your first glance itself. And most of the interviewers or the HRs or whoever the hiring managers or well said, they go through your resume and they don't take a lot of time looking into it. So you guys should be very consistent even in terms of punctuations, grammars, These are some things which actually look very prominent in the first glance. So the next important thing is, you have to put your resume reading the job description very clearly, because there are different kinds of profiles. Even if it is the tech related jobs, I would say there are different kinds of profiles that you can expect. There is like, you have the analyst jobs, and there are like full stack developers, which could also sometimes split explicitly into your backend developing and the front end developers. And there are some times where you actually see profiles like the embedded software engineers. So you guys, if you keep applying the same set of skills for all the job profiles, it's most of the time when you have this resume shortlist component involved, your resume might not actually pass. Sometimes it would be the person who might look. In that case, there is a little bit of extra chance where your resume can actually go through, considering whatever the other features that you have. But most of the time, you have this ATS thing. When you have this ATS, it's going to, parse at the first glance, and then it forwarded a few resumes to the next level of scrutiny. If your resume fails to meet the job description tailoring of your resume, it's actually going to, fail in the first glance itself. So one question I would say, how you could keep your resume tailored to the job descriptions is like, you go through the entire job description very thoroughly, and there would be some keywords like the IT related, if it could be the skills and what they are actually expecting out of you, and the domain. Sometimes, let's say if you're in biotech domain, if you have some interest or you did some project oriented to that, you could actually put those in the first place. That would actually help, the when you pass the resume, those will be highlighted and your resume is having a higher chance of moving forward. So the next few things, the contact information. So the main reason of including this point is, most of the time you guys might miss adding some of the contact info. I mean, contact info, I mean, it's not like your mobile number and your email. Those things you will anyway add it. I mean, the GitHub's links or whatever the portfolio is where you have actually hosted your actual content, what you have done, and the LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also like the most important thing. Every now and then, hiring managers look through your LinkedIn and understand what these guys are doing apart from, the academic purposes. So the next important thing is about your objective. So what you intend, the objective that you do or you present in your resume should mostly focus on what you have done so far, which would highlight your experience. As a fresher, it would be, why do you want to apply for this role? It should something highlight in this domains, and it should be like generic enough, not too depth, like where you present every piece of information. It should be generic, but it should focus that whatever you're trying to apply for a profile should be beneficial both for the organization as well as for as an individual who is applying for the company. Yeah. So the next important thing in the resume, I would say, would be how you present your projects and your coursework. So when I say this, lot of times when you write the descriptions of your projects or your previous experiences, if you are already, I mean, doing it at later point of time, you'll have your previous companies or internships also. If you are applying for a placement, the thing that you describe in your content, it should majorly focus on what you as a developer or what you as an individual have contributed to that project. Most of the time it should not be like, let's say I'm working on some DBMS project where it's about an inventory management. It should not be like what is done in this inventory management or what it does, what are the features of it. That is not the main thing that they expect out. When you look at the industry, it's about what you have done in it. You could actually involve something like you have developed the front end interface, and you could actually add the links on what the portfolio is, what you actually did. If possible, there are like a lot of free websites that you could actually find for deploying your applications also. It would be very good if you could actually provide some live applications as well. And then it should be like developing the APIs, or if it is for the backend work, API development is like one of the most important thing that you can actually include. Apart from this, how you present should actually focus on, the performance improvements. These are some of the key things you could actually list down in your projects. How the work that you have done have actually impacted the project, and how did the performance of that system develop. So these are few things you could actually include in your project descriptions as well as in the previous experiences. Moving forward, the next thing I would say is the extracurriculars. Let's say even if it is a minor thing, having at least one extracurricular or POR or whatever it is will actually help your resume to stand out when you compare it with someone who doesn't have anything apart from the acad things. So I would encourage all the new or whoever is in the second and third years now. Anyway, fourth years are almost placements are done. So whoever is in the second and third years, at least take part in one or the other PORs, and this is like best time where you could actually develop the skills. And this is not something I'm saying just for the resume purpose, which will actually help you participating further in your hiring process also. Let's say if you are in your HR round or something, this is where a lot of times your real time experience that you have done will give you your answers. When they ask some questions, it's your experiences that speaks your entire answer in a very proper way, rather than when you prepare some standard questions that are asked in your HR interviews, and then if you prepare, that might not give you a best result. But when you actually do something from your side, it will be your experience that definitely speaks in the HR rounds. So the next thing is about the grammar errors. That should be like the most important thing when you present your resume. Okay, so moving forward, the next thing, as I was being speaking a lot from long about what you have to do with the LinkedIn, how it can actually help you in your tech jobs. So the first thing is there are two sides of this. So the first thing is like how you put it as an additional thing apart from your resume. That's where the people can, or the recruiters can actually look at what you are and what you guys are doing. So as I already told you, you're trying to put the resume to a one page, right? You may not be able to actually include all the information in this one page of resume. So that's where the LinkedIn actually helps, where you could put the major important things which are related to your job description in the resume for that particular company. And whatever the remaining, there could be like remaining a lot of projects that you guys work on. You cannot include all the 10 or 20 projects that you worked. So the remaining things could actually, you can put it in your LinkedIn, adding a proper references of your GitHub profiles, or where that particular uh, project or wherever you have hosted it. There should be a proper repository maintenance which will actually help you in populating your LinkedIn resumes. Apart from this, so there is like other side of the thing of the resume is, sorry, for the LinkedIn, where you can actually find a lots and lots of jobs in the industry. It's like one thing you already know is like you connect with your alumni or whoever the recruiters or the talent acquisition partners. So these guys will be your major targets when you apply for your off-campus jobs. One would be for the referrals, and then the other important thing is the talent acquisition. So the talent acquisition, the main purpose of them itself when you have any organization is that they have to find the talent out and find the best ones in the industry. So if you guys already approach them, their jobs gets easier and they will be actually interested. There's a lot of cases where you actually get the interview scheduled in a couple of days also. It's not like they'll brag you for months and months. That's not going to be the case. You will instantly get the interview calls also in a couple of days as well. I'm just telling this from my personal experience, where I almost attended like 3 interviews now just with this referrals and the talent acquisition connections. The other thing, which I never used actually during my college times, but I'm telling it now, is that nowadays the LinkedIn is became like the platform where you can actually find your off-campus jobs even more than going through the career sites and applying through referrals. That's one part of the story. But the other thing is like nowadays a lot of companies started posting whatever the application forms. They also made it very simpler, not going through the entire creation of accounts, workday jobs, and all these things. You can actually go simply, there'll be a Google form you can actually submit, and you can actually expect a proper whatever it is, the further process, be it the online assessment or what they're expecting, a system design round or direct interviews. So you can actually get a lot of calls by the LinkedIn search. So as a fresher, you could simply, there is nothing that you have to, work hard in the search as well. It's like just like you can go to the LinkedIn search and just type SD hiring. You'll get a lots and lots of profiles on what the open processes are. If you could check this like in a day or so, once in a day, that would be like very helpful, because from the current scenario or whatever the recession out there, which is still there, not to major extent, but most of the forms gets closed in like 4 to 5 hours at max. One day is the form limit where these recruiters or the HRs are now keeping it. So if you could frequently check it out, if you are focusing more on the off campus jobs, I would say that would be the best place to look out. Yeah, apart from that, so the company processes, the first thing, there could be resume shortlisting, which if you guys can focus all the steps that we have discussed so far, I think your resumes would be easily shortlisted to the next rounds. So the next rounds, considering the on-campus jobs, mostly would be an online assessment. So some of the tips I would say in the online assessment is that, considering the tech jobs, I'm just putting this session to the tech jobs from now. So the major problem that the students face is that you'll have a lot of test cases that you guys have to pass. Most of the time, you guys cannot, it'll be like max 1 hour or whatever it is. The constraints of that online assessment is that you won't get much time, to try a lot of approaches. So you will have this examples provided. Some, let's say if it's an Amazon process or something, I'm just telling this as an example because there are a few companies which won't give you any example cases, but Amazon usually does that, where you'll have at least two visible test cases which you can actually see. Some students try to, based on this, whatever the example that is there over there, they try to design some algorithm. But I would say that will not help you, because the examples that they provide are usually in a way that they appear like it's just like a simple sorting, but the core constraints would be the size and all, the size and the complexity of your algorithms. Let's say if you start writing an algorithm with whatever the size that is provided in the example, even the bubble sort would work, which is like if you do it in n square also it would work. But the hidden test cases, there will be a lot of hidden test cases which actually expect you with the merge sort. Or if it is simple enough, you could actually, it could be a simple search algorithm also. So that's where your constraints and the edge cases which are provided will very much come into picture. That's where you actually have to design what is the complexity that you're going to target in solving the problem. And the next thing in the online assessment that you guys have to focus is on what is the solution that you have written. When I say solutions written, this is not immediate in your technical, in the online assessment, but most of the times whatever the solutions that you have written in your online assessments will be the major important thing that you're going to discuss in one or the other interview runs. Let's say most of these things happen when you have like 2 to 3 technical interviews. The first technical interview, they usually focus on something else. I mean, few other concepts that you, how good you are at DSA or whatever the concept that they are targeting. But the second or the third round, where you actually discuss, they're going to look forward like why you actually solved this problem in this approach. They're going to consider whatever the solution that you have written. And post the exam, sometimes you might not be, able to get all the test cases passed. Let's say if there are 15, you might only pass 12 in your online assessment. They also expect you to go back after the process and get the remaining 3 test cases solved and understand what is the approach that you actually missed. So that's where your whatever the solutions that you have written should be your very clear on what you have written there, and you should try to, get it improved as much as possible if you did not get the entire thing correct. This happened to me like in couple of interviews when I was in campus itself, where they clearly asked me what is something that you know which question did you find interesting in your online assessment. and which one did you find it difficult. And I was technically asked to solve that problem once again in the second round of my interview. So that's where the solutions come into play in the subsequent processes. So moving forward, the next step, the major important thing, that is your technical interviews. So in the technical interviews, or whatever the interview it might be, the main important thing is you have to keep yourself engaged with the interviewer throughout the process. So I'm just adding a few suggestions here. So the introduction would be the most important thing, where they give you a first glance on what the student is. In terms of a lot of aspects can be easily understood here. That is, one would be your speaking skills, how you're going to communicate, or how you're going to work in a team. That is also sometimes depicted in the way you listen to the interviewer. Sometimes they disrupt you in between just to ensure that how you keep yourself good in the uh, entire teamwork. So the next thing, the fundamentals, as we already discussed when in the skill development. So your fundamentals are the most important things that you actually target in the technical interviews. So let's say I'm just using this as an example. Let's say you're applying for a Stack developer. So most of the time there is like some standard set of questions which there's not like they ask you to solve a problem. It would be like, what is an event loop? So these are some things, these are like very basic questions which you can actually expect whenever you learn a language. When you learn this MERN, event loop is very very important. So they won't ask you much. They'll just first start with what is event loop. Depending on your answer, they'll actually see. It's very easy nowadays. Even if I go before an interview, let's say I go to online and search for Stack interview questions, you'll get a lot of questions, and that would be like mostly theoretical oriented. So it's quite possible that students just understand or remember those answers. So what they do is they give you a real time problem and they ask you the output. The main intention you can expect whenever you see something of this sort is that it is something related to the question that they posed just before that. Okay, so that's the main important thing that you have to keep in mind whenever you participate in any technical interview. And the next important thing is, so in the interview at least you'll actually have a chance to present yourself in an improvised manner. Whenever, let's say if you're given a TSA problem, the main suggestion I would say, even if you know the solution, the best optimized solution for that in terms of space as well as the time, I would say start with the brute force, which is like the most worst way of solving the problem. This, I'm saying this because in the interview they expect or look to how the student is building upon their current state of mind. So you can take some time. It's not like I start with this, say some brute force approach, and then I interviewer asks, and you should not put yourself immediate. At least think for some time just to give an impression that you're trying to think, which will actually help. And then you can tell the next better approach that if you're like reach the end and this is the best approach that and there are some times where you could actually expect another, if the interviewer is expecting another level of optimization, it's okay, you can actually think for some time, and it's, you can feel free to actually ask for an hint. By hint, it's not like you can expect the entire solution or an approach from the interviewer. Something, most of the hints would be like, you can sort, if it's like comparing something with the two arrays, they can give you a hint like, look at the arrays or sort it and then try to compare. At least then, using those hints, you guys should be in a stage where you can actually build up your solution from there. You have to include only the things that you're definitely confident. Even if it is only two skills, that's okay. But if you lie third skill and if they ask the questions on that, it will give you a very bad impression. Even if you perform like 50 minutes, you perform good, and the 10 minutes you're like, you put something else, that will give you a very bad impression. And it's usually the case that the starting 20 minutes and your last 10 minutes are very very important in your interviews. Yeah. And it's also always good in the tech interviews when you ask the questions at the end. It's like, it should not be like, what am I going to do in this job? That's something, if you ask questions of those sort at the end of the interviews, when they ask you, do you have any questions, it's very important that you should never say a no. The main purpose of that question is that they want to understand what you are looking forward in the company. So it should give you an idea, or give the interviewer an idea, that the person or the interviewee is genuinely interested in this job. It should be something like what the company is doing. I mean, company is doing in the sense, it's not like in which domain you guys are working. It's about some of the let's say, if you are, something is very booming now in the industry, let's say if it's like fintech, so you could pose some questions like, what is some projects that you actually did as a part of this, which are now in real time use. So something like this sort, where you, that gives them the idea that you are motivated enough to take part in the role. Or you could also ask, how is the growth of that particular interviewer over the time from he or she has joined the company. So these are like some of the important things that I would say you have to focus on the technical interviews. And not just about how you do it when you are in the interview, even after the interview, it's always good that you actually drop a mail. Most of the time you'll have the mail IDs of whoever the interview is. You could actually send them a thanking note for their time or whatever. That gives like a lot of good impression to them when they connect back. Just, it need not be a lot of things. You can just drop out a mail like, thank you for your valuable time, just like how we do it after the events, like where you thank the entire student community and all for participation. It's something similar to that, that gives them a very good impression as well. So yeah, apart from this, the next rounds you'll have is the HR round most of the time. And as I already mentioned, the experience is something which you have to put forward. When you speak out the answers, you have to make use as much as possible your real time experience to answer them, because that is something which will be like very unique for each student. It's not about the same answer for everyone, right? So it's your experience. If you start speaking with that, it will really help you in making a positive impact in this round. Apart from the experience, the next important thing, I would say, is like the negotiation. I mean, it's may not be of use currently when you apply through the placement cell, but most of the students, they don't do a proper research about the company when they take part in the HR round. That's where the negotiation skills goes wrong. It could be like the salary negotiation mostly relies on what is the market research that you have done till this point, on what it actually how much is the current average salary, or whatever, if it's in terms of salary, what you can actually expect. That's where your major part of the interview, especially in the HR round, decides your package and all. Unmute and talk. Yeah. So if you have to negotiate for a salary, what would be a good way to go about it? So salary negotiation, I would say, I mean, I hope this is for the offline process. For the on-campus jobs, it's like design, and the placement cell takes care of how much the placement thing is. The first thing when you start negotiating for a salary is that it should not be like, most of the HRs, they ask you what is your current CTC, and then they ask you how much you're expecting. It should not be like, since I'm getting like 10 LPA, I want something more than 10. That's not the best way to go about answering it. It should be like, there are cases even when, let's say, if out of 10, if your base is like 9 LPA, it's okay sometimes. When you join a new company, you can keep your base to 9, and then you can actually negotiate more in terms of other benefits. So whenever you apply for a company, you have this base as well as the variable pays. At the end, even the variable pays will be credited to your account only. So sometimes you can play smart, where the company mainly focuses actually on the base pay. So if you could keep your base pay same and still negotiate on your variable part, what you get at the end is still better than what you were actually getting currently. But the companies would be ready to offer that. That's what I'm trying to say. And the other aspect is, you have to do a thorough research on what the role demands and how much you're going to put forward. Depending on that, you can start with a little bit on the higher end, but the value that you tell there, it should be like reasonable enough. It's like, it's okay if the companies can offer you like till 18 lpa. It's okay sometimes if you say you're expecting something like 20. Anyway, they'll pull you down to some extent, but if it is like, if you start saying 30, they'll completely lose interest. They're not ready to negotiate further. Also, there could be a case even if you perform really good, because of what the company can give you, it may not go forward. So do a proper research. You can go through similar profiles over the internet. You have lots and lots today. Or you could actually connect with people, and you can, anyway, they may not tell you the exact pay how much they are getting. So they could actually give you a rate, or how much range it's there. How to find a salary of similar jobs. So the lead code has a lot of interview experiences, which I would say would be the best place to find the salaries of similar jobs. I mean, lots of companies. I mean, there is like set of companies that you can expect. There is like tiers of companies, right? You guys already know, like you'll have this fang and all. uh, when you aim for companies something like that, it's good that you look in that range. You can't go to a startup company that you apply and then you ask something that a very well established company can give. Yeah, the companies usually don't disclose the salary information. That's why I'm saying the lead code actually provides you a lot of details, where when you are given the interview experiences, there is also this compensation details. Most of them, some whoever is like the previous employees usually write that. That will give you a fair idea on what the range is. I'm not just saying that you stick to that value itself. Depending on something similar around that, you can actually negotiate if the pay what you're offered is less than what the others are getting.
Okay, thank you, Yagnesh, for sharing those valuable strategies. Now, here's a question from my end. Can you share a
Okay.
bit about your journey from IIT Palakkad to STEM Life Sciences? Like, what are the key milestones you went through in this journey?
So particularly from my side, I actually got it as a replacement offer after my internship. So even they did hire the people when they were doing it after the in the final year also. So since I know my friends, I'm just telling it from the experience, not just from my personal experience, because mine is mostly through the internship. And for the internship, mostly they did just focus on the DSA. I had nothing else at that point what they asked me in the interviews. It was primarily about the DSA. And I would say whatever the interview that has happened, even for me during the internship, I would say it's like it I was at least stuck at some point in the interview, and it was only with the coordination between the interviewer and me that the interview went forward. And we actually did the interview for 1.5 hour, had it for 1 hour, where we refined our approach. Whatever I was saying, I was like, the question also, it's like mine was on linked list. So it was little bit tweak of there is reversal of linked list, and then you have to merge both of them and find some sum. So when you get stuck, you can actually take a small hint and start building. Even if you are lack of some programming language at that point, I mean, if they expect it to solve it in something, even if you don't know, or the syntax, or you, because of lack of practice, if you forget, I would say get the concept correct. And if you could at least write the pseudo code on what you're going to do, it's they are going to at least get a good impression. That's something which actually helped me during my interview as well. So yeah, apart from that, if I had to speak about the placement part, so during the placement we had this online test. Once again, the major components were the fundamentals, the C fundamentals itself. It's not like anything else. Also, it was very basic C that you guys could have learned in your first years. I mean, if it's a new curriculum, I know it's with the Python, but yeah, the foundations is like very simple, where you're asked like few outputs, and the next part it focused on a little bit about the DBMS. And there were like two or three questions from networks and OS. It's like very basic thing. And then the rest everything was like medium to one hard problem in the DSA, and I mean the lead code range, and two are from the medium. So this is what the online test was. And coming to the interviews, the major part, again, they started the first round with the DSA itself on some questions on graphs, if I remember correctly. After that, the second round was, the extensive discussion mostly about your projects, the past projects that you have worked on what you did during the intern, and what did you actually take away from your internship, what's something that new that you have learned. So these are the major things I would say, at least for the strand, they had actually focused when they did the hiring a couple of years back.
Thank you. I also have one more question. Like, do companies prefer candidates with deep expertise in any single area or those with a broad skills? So, how should students approach their skill development?
So it's, see, when I would say it's not always, you cannot learn all the skills that the company might expect. There will be like a long list when you look at the job descriptions also. Okay, I'll come to that. So there'll be a like long list of skills that they expect, but in reality most of the companies, these are something that they actually teach you or train you after you join the company. And at the interview level, what they expect is how you're most of the time it's like how you're approaching the problem. They want to know about your problem solving ability and your thinking capacity. So these are the two things they primarily focus. And it's definitely not possible for anyone, to learn all the skills. It's, if you could focus on one particular skill, that would be helpful. If the company, as I was using in the MERN stack or something like that, let's say you are very good like at MongoDB and Express and Node, you could very well straight away go ahead and apply for these companies without any second thought. You could actually go ahead and apply, and there's high chances that your resume gets shortlisted. But there are like a common set of skills, like the DSA and this Git, having a fair knowledge of Git, and sometimes you might not know React, sometimes you might have an expertise in Angular. So even if it is that, the core concepts usually, let's say I'm just using this example of React and Angular. So these are like two different things which we usually use in UI development, but the entire idea on how you implement is very different. Let's say if you are good at Angular, the core concepts that sits at the end, like the events or whatever these all are, those are the things same even in React. So companies still won't expect you to learn the entire React before you apply for the application. But if you have the relevant experience, they are ready to consider at least for the first round of your interviews. And the rest depends on how you progress in your interviews. That decides how much you're going to go forward in the process. So I would say not having the skills that are mentioned should be a hindrance to your job applications and to learn. You could if you have little bit of idea, it's okay that you could actually manage it in the interviews, that I'm learning this, and you learned till this point, so this is what, then you can actually expect a question in the areas what you actually know. And if you could get your answers correct at till that point, there are high chances that they might consider you. That gives an impression that the student is okay to learn new things. Yeah, so in that sense, even if you don't have the expected skill, it's definitely helpful if you expand your skill set as much as you could.